Hey, welcome back to Joey's HR Lounge, where we talk about the intersection of people, technology, and the world of work. This week, I am joined by an awesome guest, Ashley M. Anderson. Ashley is someone that I've known for quite some time. And believe it or not, this is her first podcast episode as a guest. But because of my comfort with Ashley, I know that she's going to be an amazing guest. Ashley is the Associate Director of People and Talent at the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering at Arizona State University. So I'm in the cold, she's in the warm, but this conversation is going to be super, super, super great. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited
My pleasure.
for the conversation.
I've got to ask, how warm is it in Phoenix right now?
It's actually not bad. I think we're trending like in the high 70s, like low 80s, and this is almost our winter. Like it's probably we'll get a little bit colder maybe before March hits, but for the most part, this is why I live here, because it's just so comfortable and I don't have to no.
I am. Your weather is so disrespectful because it's 32 degrees where I am right now in Maryland.
Oh,
So
no,
we're freezing.
See, and the conversation will be very different in about 4 months when it's probably going to be like 120 here,
Yeah,
and it'll
true,
be very comfortable where you are.
true. Now, do people do you like vacation to get away from the heat the same way that we vacation to get away from the cold? Is that how
Yes.
that works?
Yeah, a
Okay.
lot of people, there's not a lot of summertime happenings out here just because it is so hot. So, and a lot of people travel to other places. I was actually sitting in my class. One of the classes that I take over at the university, and my professor said she goes to Seattle every summer. And I'm like, I don't blame her because it's
Wow.
ridiculously hot here in the summertime.
Yeah, I guess she goes for the cool breeze and hot coffee. So
For
very,
sure.
very cool. Well, hey, let's start from the beginning of your career. What originally drew you into HR?
What originally drew me into HR, I've always been like a people person, right? I've always been a people person. I love to interact with people. My career first started out in just traditional call center customer service. And I was trying to figure out, like, what is it exactly that I want to do? What is it that, you know, I want my career to be? Because I certainly don't want to spend, another long stint of time in the call center. And HR drew me because, you get to work with people, you get to solve business problems. And it was just very interesting to me. And so I've been in HR about 15 years. And way back when I was working in that call center, I had the opportunity to go into a temporary role because the HR department needed some help, and fell in love with it, fell in love with talent acquisition. And from there, it just I just got in and then continued to grow.
I love that. I love that. The more I meet with HR professionals, the more I realize none of us knew this would be our life when we were in high school or college.
No, we did not. I
Uh,
think for most of us, we had, ambitions of being something different, something greater, something not HR related at all. But then somehow we all kind of fell into this career and then ended up loving it.
Yeah, it loving it, and then I would say it loves back. I think it's a cool space to learn and grow and make an impact, not only
Hmm.
on your business, but I know that you're involved in other things outside of work that
Absolutely.
probably rely on the skills that you have as an HR professional. So that might be a podcast for another time.
Yeah,
Um,
we can get into that another day for sure.
for
Because
sure.
there's a whole lot. There's another avenue. I think HR, with when you work on the people side of things, it gives you you advocate for the business, you advocate for the employee, and that advocacy can relate to other areas, and that translates into other skill sets and you being able to do other things in different spaces if you so choose.
Yeah. Well, so early in your career, I'm sure you were working in that call center in that interim role, and there may have been a lot of policies and processes that you were working on. At what point did you realize that there was more to the HR story, more to the talent acquisition story, and that you wanted a part of that bigger story?
It's funny you asked that question because for me, I thought I was going to be in talent acquisition forever. I loved giving people jobs. I love being the person to call and say, "Hey, I want to offer you this position. We want you to be a part of our team," because I know what that meant for the person on the other side of the line, right? It's like that's life changing for some people, whether it's salary increase, position that they've always wanted, the list goes on. And so let me tell it. I was like, I'm never going to be a HRBP. I'm never going to do, total rewards or something like that. But lo and behold, few years after that intern position, I got into a healthcare role and I was still doing talent acquisition. It was just in a different industry. And I remember specifically telling someone like, I don't want to do HRBP. They do too much. But about a year later, after seeing kind of what that team does, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try being an HRBP. And the opportunity presented itself for me to do that in a capacity where I was around really, really strong HRBPs, had been doing it a lot of years, and I was able to get like that mentorship and development piece in the career. And I got into the HRBP world and loved it. Absolutely loved it. And so I was able to, take that step over. But for a while, I didn't think I was going to leave talent. I thought I was just going to stay there and be, a talent person. But I'm definitely glad I made the jump because I don't think I would be in the type of position I am with the university if I didn't do that and get that experience.
Now, I think there is something to be said about that jump that you made because if you could speak to maybe the younger TA professionals who may only see, s- I've seen the similar thing where like if you're in TA or recruiting, that's your only path, and it's
Yeah.
very hard to find that off ramp into HR
Mhm.
because the skills and purview that you have within the organization, it's like it's only in that area.
Right.
You don't
Right.
have much purview into employee relations, much purview into some of the
Mhm.
compliance and policy paperwork conversations. What
Mhm.
was it for you? What were some helpful things that allowed you to make that jump? And what advice would you give for a TA professional who wants to explore the full range of HR like you did?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things that were working in my favor. Just overall, the organization that I worked for was a small healthcare organization. Like, although we had multiple locations, we probably had about 600 staff members altogether. And I built really, really good relationships with the hiring managers that I was working with at the sites because I hired for all locations across the Phoenix Valley. And ultimately, those relationships are what allowed me to go into the HR role because at the time they were needing support, but then also recognizing Ashley does really good work. So it's a combination of the environment kind of cultivated it for me, but at the same time, I had a reputation of being able to, bring the candidates in, being able to get the hiring managers what they need and have the necessary conversations. And so for the TA professional that's looking for that, I would definitely lean into the relationship building and then also make sure that your team knows, your leadership knows that, hey, I want to grow into this so that when the opportunity comes for you to join in on an ER issue or for you to join in on something that's not necessarily TA related, that you can go ahead and do that with no.
Yeah, I live by saying it's not who you know or what you know, but it's who knows what you
Yes.
can do.
Yes. It's who knows what you can do. And one of the things is once I got into that HRBP role, I was fortunate enough that the, person who had it before, which was now my manager, he was like, "Well, hey, I have a pretty strong team. I'm gonna have the capacity to mentor you for the first year." And I was like, "This is great." But one of the things he taught me very early on is to always let your work speak for itself. And so I continued to do that. And that I think is what gave me that initial credibility because I had the credibility from when I was doing talent. But then as I slowly learned about, all of the things that are involved in the role of HRBP, it's like, hey, I need to continue making sure that my work speaks for itself even when I'm not in the room. And that little bit of information has taken me so far because I've taken it literally in every role whether work, whether community rate based, whether advocacy based, always letting my work speak for itself because then you don't have to worry about anyone questioning your intentions or your work or anything like that. You're just doing your job and doing what needs to be done.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so this boss had a pretty significant influence in your career at that moment. Who would you
Mhm.
say has most influenced your leadership style?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would there's a few people. There was a couple bosses that I had at that healthcare organization that really took me under their wing. And so having that like in the corporate space, I think was really, really important for me to develop my own leadership style. And I even see today like me using some of the same techniques and tactics that I learned from way back when, because this was about, gosh, about 10 years ago. Um, but then also when I think about like growing up, I also think about the family members, the teachers, the people that also were in my circle that
Yeah.
influenced my leadership style, even way back when. So, I think about my grandmother who um, she served on our my hometown city council for over 20
Mhm.
years, and she was the first Black woman elected. And so I think about her and I think about kind of those leadership skills that she instilled in me as a young girl, and that I still carry with me today. And she still tells me the same things that she told me when I was little, when I
Yeah.
call her and check in and see how things are going with her. But but I think that I think leadership is cultivated from a very young age.
Yeah.
I think that it's cultivated something, throughout your career, but even some of those small things that were shared with you or your parents or grandparents had you do, those things instill leadership. So it's not just about, okay, I graduated from high school, I graduated from college. Now it's time for me to learn about leadership. You learn about leadership continuously all throughout your life.
Yeah. You know, you brought up a great point about family uh, influencing your leadership style. And it's definitely by way of like what you see them do,
Mhm.
what they allow you to do, what they coach and guide you towards doing. And I have similar stories as well with respect to like my family and my grandparents on both sides. Um, but one thing that was cool for me recently was I mapped out my family tree, and
Mm.
it's not sponsored, so I'm not gonna say which tool, but but I use the tool to like map out the tree, and
Yeah.
I have a interest in politics, and
Oh, okay.
I would have never known that my uncle, who, passed away early in life, his major was political science, and when I had that
Wow.
conversation with my mom, she was like, "Yeah, he may have been a governor, or he may have been a mayor at one point, but, I mean, he passed away, early in life." I'm like, as it's interesting to see how family shapes us because of what we see, but also
Absolutely.
what's inside us too. And
Absolutely. Like, for me, going back to my grandmother, as a young girl, she would take me to city council meetings. Like, I'm like 6, 7, 8 years old, and I'm sitting in a city council meeting, having no idea what's going
yeah,
on, right? But hearing about what's happening and seeing her speak, in advocacy of her constituents in her district, right? Sitting in meetings. As I became a teenager, she had me taking minutes in her meetings. And so she's like, "I need you to take notes. Here's a pen, here's a pad and a pen." I'm
yeah,
like, "Well, but I thought I was just here with you?" And so but it's funny how those things at the time, you're like, "Why am I even doing this?" But now, as I've, made a name for myself and come up in the HR space and come up in just other spaces in the community, I'm just like, this is exactly why I was doing all those things as a young girl. So it directly correlates and just that connection is really priceless.
yeah.
I'm so honored to like think about and connect those instances and those memories to like what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's so, precious and priceless, and,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can't put a price tag on that. It's
Mm-mm, not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all.
Alright, if you're just tuning in, this is Ashley Anderson. She is Associate Director of People and Talent at the Ira A. Fulton Schools of engineering at Arizona State University.
Works
Uh,
up.
wait, what's that? What's that?
So Forks Up. So we are Arizona State University are the Sun Devils, and so
Yes.
our we have Sparky is our mascot, and so Forks Up is our
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
that is our like symbol of school pride, and
See,
so that's what we throw up to represent, to represent us, and we are the Sun
yeah.
Devils is our name and our mascot.
See, I'm an East Coast guy, so I would have never known that, but that's
Never
cool.
known.
My
No,
my
usually
school,
people don't.
we're not as cool. I'm a, Terp, so, we're turtles. I mean, Fear the Turtle, but we don't have anything cool to say besides that. So whenever I have someone on the show, I ask their hot take, and, the hot take that you shared was, DEI and everything that falls under it and the political state of affairs. So I know with the work that you do in the community, the work and how you show up at your job,
Mhm.
this is very, very important to you, and as it should be for anyone listening,
Yeah.
and who plays a role in humanity.
Mhm.
But how has your thinking on DEI evolved over the course of your career?
Oh my gosh. How much time we got?
Let's
Okay.
go. Let's go.
So I think what what has surprised me the most is how individuals understand how people think about DEI, right? DEI has been around for years, right? It's not people have a tendency to think that people are getting the short end of the stick and getting a pass to kind of skip to the front of the line when that's really not what it is at all. So, I've had to kind of like see and understand like people actually think like DEI is this when it's the complete opposite.
Mhm.
And so understanding how others think about it kind of just has helped me navigate conversations in terms of getting people to understand like it's not about someone that's not having the correct credentials, jumping to the top of the line or, seeing a physician, for example, at an appointment and, oh, well, they don't have the credentials because they are an individual of color. They just got through because of the color of their skin or their gender. Not the case at all. So I think that for me, my thinking has evolved to understand this is how people think about this, right? Even though let the history records show that this is what it is and it's more than just this small circle. It's huge. And
Yeah.
so I think that part is really important because it's like in order to have conversations in order to have conversations that even try to advance the needle, you have to be able to understand, what exactly is DEI and is it something that you need to be familiar with? Absolutely. And why do you need to be familiar with it? And this is what it actually does, not this is
Mhm.
what you think it does.
A former pastor of mine who I still, reach out to this day, and he does a lot of work on, racial reconciliation, and his saying is, "Comprehension begins with conversation." So,
Mm,
to your
that's
point,
good.
the more you have conversations around this thing and get an understanding of where each other is on the issue, the easier it is to maybe cross the bridge and land on, what it actually is.
Hmm.
So super, super important. I love that perspective. Let's maybe isolate the I in DEI
Yeah.
for a second. Inclusion. Um,
Hmm.
when you think about the modern workplace, there's competition of talent. Now there's introduction of artificial intelligence, and some brand them as agent employees or
Yeah.
AI coworkers. Um,
It's just weird to think about that. It's just like totally weird to think about like a coworker as an AI model just being like it's a computer.
yeah, yeah. I've never considered my friends to be the SimCity bots that I was playing with back in the day.
Right, right.
Um, but with all of that in our new reality, what would you say inclusion looks like when it's working well inside today's organization?
Yeah. I think the inclusion part of it, is really important, right? It's probably and I don't wanna say it's the most important because I think when you think about DEI, like, all of it is equally important in different ways. But when you think about inclusion, I think the first thing to consider is the generations that we have working in the workplace, right? I saw a story on the news or on social not that long ago of how a woman went into a retail store, and there was a woman in that store in her 90s, like 90s, that was working there. And I was taken aback because you know, I would expect someone, in their 90s to be, at home, enjoying life, enjoying their
I'm in my
family.
soft life era in the '90s.
In my soft life era. Absolutely, whether it's in my home or in the nursing home, I'm be in my
Absolutely.
soft life era. But when you think about that just goes to speak to the different generations in the workplace because I can guarantee you in that retail store, there was probably also someone working in their 20s, right? Or maybe even their upper teens. But that just speaks to when we think about inclusion, we can't just operate out of one direct lens. We have to also be able to speak to all of the different generations and meeting their needs. Like, what do they need in terms of inclusion? What do they need in terms of feeling like I am a valued member of this organization? Because also, think about this like, we say, oh, we need employee resource groups, we need this group and that group, and all of those are great, but is it really meeting the need? We spend a lot of time at work, right? Granted, there's hybrid, there's remote work, and all of the things, but we spend a lot of time in the office with one another. We spend the most time there away from our family. So we should be at places where we enjoy going every day. But I think really at the end of the day, it's like, what does it look like for all of these groups? And how do we make all of these groups feel included and have that inclusion factor, right? And that may require some creative thinking on the organization's part to make sure that that's met and met well. And it's going to look different for industry, size of the organization, what they do, and how they do it. But I think that is the main consideration that an organization has to take into account.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that a lot. And definitely keeping diversity, equity, and inclusion as a balanced um, KPI or a balanced thing to look at, or balanced things, plural,
Mhm.
to look at as you navigate. Are we really putting together the right team? Um,
Right.
do we have the right team for the right vision and goals that we have as an organization? Understanding that foundationally, we all know businesses are in business to be a
E
business,
exactly. Out here
and
to make money.
how
We all
how we
want
do
to
it
do that.
matters. Yeah, yeah. Um, and so I think that really is part of HR's biggest value add is
Right.
the curation of the people. But what would you say is the biggest value you see HR adding to organizations in this moment in time that we're in?
The biggest value add right now, I see is I would probably say in the areas of like engagement and DEI is probably on that same path and wavelength because I think that HR professionals are understanding that hey, we can't just like give folks a pizza party and call it a day. Like that's not enough anymore. And also being able to call out, the things that are not working, right? As HR professionals, we have to make sure we protect the company and protect the employee. But it's also, I think, making sure that, hey, we have to call out these things aren't working anymore. So being able to strategize with your leadership and say, hey, we need to approach this from a different lens, I think is something that HR professionals are having to do. The old ways of working even 10 years ago and pre-pandemic are not working anymore. We are in an entirely different workplace than what we've seen before, and it's requiring different skills of HR professionals. And so
Mhm.
those skills are going to make our workplaces better.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. It's a part of what I wanted to talk about, but how are you using technology to deliver value? And maybe could you speak to your thoughts on like the state of HR tech, like the tools that you
Mm.
use, the tools your team use? Um, Not mentioning brands or names or anything like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what are you? what tools bring the most value? What type of tools don't bring value at all?
Yeah.
What are some of the pain points and wins that you're seeing from a technology standpoint, either in
Mhm.
your organization or as you talk to other HR professionals?
From a tech standpoint, and I'll be honest, it's hard for me because I'm old school. Like I'm a pen and paper girl. Like just give me a notebook and some notes. I'll write things down.
Like
And
the council
so,
meetings,
huh?
like the council meetings, the city council meetings.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Like those city council meetings when I was taking notes in meetings with different
yeah.
leaders across the city. So for me, it did take me a little bit to kind of get into the tech side of things, but using different AI platforms, sometimes as thought partners, has been super helpful for me. There's certainly certain people I can call and I'll be like, hey, like I have this situation. I just need to kind of talk through it.
Mhm.
And there's certainly certain people I can call and I know that they will pick up the phone when I call. But sometimes that option isn't always available and I need to think through something. So using AI platforms as like a thought partner and as like a partner in researching different topics has been helpful for me. And we've implemented, different AI opportunities for staff members to learn and to grow. And I think that making sure that people know, like, AI is not here to take your job. Like, I wholeheartedly believe that, but I also believe, at some point you have to become proficient with some of these tech platforms. Um, so still doing like various reporting, pulling Excel spreadsheets with data, things like that. But I think for me, being able to sit down and brainstorm and having the different AI platforms available to be able to do that has been super helpful because sometimes, listen, after a long day and there's still work that needs to be done, sometimes it's just like, man, like my brain is not firing at all cylinders like I want it to be. But sometimes using that can be super helpful. I'm not always the person to be like, "Hey, write an email for me to ask this person about this." And no, I can do that myself.
Mhm.
Like, work with me on more of the higher level things, and that to me is well worth it and more valuable to me than some of the other basic stuff that other people may use
Yeah.
AI for.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I always love hearing perspectives of HR leaders and how they're using technology because I live in two worlds. As an analyst, I'm talking with the technology providers who are very excited about what their tools do, and what their tools can do. And then I'm
Hmm.
also in the field with the practitioners, and it's like they're not always on the same page. And
Not always, no,
yeah,
no, and it's unfortunate when that happens. However, I think that, if when they are able to get on the same page, it's great, but it's just like, "Hey, we have to kind of make sure there's some congruence here, because otherwise we're just spinning our wheels."
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we won't belabor the conversation. I know you've probably got a lot of work to get done today, and step outside and get some sun. Ashley, how can people get in contact with you and learn more about what you're doing and maybe
Mhm.
some of the causes that you support?
Yeah, I think the best way to get in touch with me would probably be LinkedIn. If you search me, I list my name with my middle initial, Ashley M. Anderson, and the reason for that is because I have an extremely common name.
Yeah,
I have run into some issues with that, and so I do use my middle initial where at all possible. So you will see Ashley M. Anderson on LinkedIn. And if you find me, it definitely you will see an ASU banner on my page above my profile picture. And it will kind of detail out some of my experience, some of the things I talked about today. But feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I will be happy to connect with anyone there.
awesome. Well, Ashley, it's been a pleasure having you here on the HR Lounge. Got to have you back sometime. And
Absolutely. The conversation was great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
yeah, my pleasure.